Hello everyone, welcome to another VWO webinar. My name is Utkarsh Ryan and we are discussing surveys for this session. For this session, we have a lot of new faces coming in. You can see Satya, who's joining us from our product team. You already know Ashwin.
Hi.
He's a regular here. And for this session, we have Mark joining us from Germany, who's our representative from our customer Contorian. Mark has over 6 years of conversion optimization experience, and he's a product manager. Uh, he loves developing and launching products. Apart from that, he just likes to travel and discover places. Currently, he's discovering uh, things in his own website and his product by running surveys. So yeah, welcome, Mark. Welcome for the session.
Thank you.
In this session, we are discussing about surveys. Before we get started, you can ask us questions during the session. We'll take them at the end. You can use the GoToWebinar question widget to ask us questions. Also, you can ask questions to us on Twitter. You can use the hashtag #AskVWO, and you can tag us, and we will be answering the questions there.
So just to add, we will be discussing, we'll be tearing down or kind of talking about surveys that you could use.
I was about to come on that.
Yeah.
So for this session would be a recorded one, so you don't need to make notes. We'll be sharing the recording with you at the end of session. So just relax, chill out, listen to our conversation. We're gonna have a lot of fun with Mark as well. For this session, we are also taking up examples. So feel free to share websites or any of your landing pages where you see a very high drop-off rate. And in the Q&A session, we can go to your website, we can see the experience, and we can recommend you ways in which you can run surveys and how you can ensure that you get quality feedback, and which could be highly optimizable, and you can run tests on that so that you can improve on those drop-off rates.
Awesome.
All right, so let's begin. For this session, we will be covering three things. First is how VW surveys plays an important role in your visitor research. Like, what are the things you need to nail down? What are the things you should be asking to your customers to improve your journey? Then we'll be taking the example of Contorian in terms of how they are doing things on their website, on their experience in terms of how they are helping their customers, their visitors, in terms of getting that quality feedback and improving their website experience. And in the end, we'll be discussing about what a great survey looks like what are the ingredients of writing a great survey, how we should target, what should be the messaging, what are the areas you need to definitely look upon while testing it, and all sort of stuff.
We also have a secret case study that is not mentioned on this slide.
Oh yeah.
That'll come right at the end. So yeah, stay on the.
All right. So to start the session, I just want to build context of how surveys came into existence. I think my first experience with surveys was I'm a 90s kid, and my parents have subscribed to this magazine called Reader's Digest.
Yeah.
And Reader's Digest have a very long form survey built into the last page of the magazine.
Along the one with the envelope.
Exactly, yeah. So, and the funny thing was, to gather that feedback, you have to mail it to them.
Exactly.
And just to add incentive in terms of mailing it to them, they have added this sweepstake, which is like a lottery. So people used to think that they're trying their luck.
My parents were so into the sweepstakes.
Is it?
Every week we thought we won $1 million. Sat up, try to figure out what we'll do with it, but that $1 million never came.
Yeah. So what I used to do, I used to fill out the form. I used to keep the envelope to myself, thinking that maybe someday I have enough money to put on a postage stamp and extend it. So yeah, that was my.
But surveys have come a long way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I used to be one of the people when I was in university standing downtown harassing people to please answer a couple questions about this product. That's. I'm glad those times have passed, but yeah, we've certainly come a long way in that regard.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like you mentioned, surveys have evolved with time.
Yes.
They've evolved in terms of the form in which they're being delivered, and the way in which your visitor responds to that. So, one very popular thing that is a latest form of surveys is actually your website's on-page surveys. Yeah. So, what is a website on-page survey? So, you go to a website, you spend a little bit of time on it, and then you see a small pop-up that asks you questions. It's as simple as that. So How helpful are on-page surveys? How helpful do you think they are in the grand scheme of optimization?
So I think very interesting, right? Like you bring in an offline experience into an online experience, and sometimes we feel that's where the job is done.
Yeah.
But getting that on-page survey right, or showing the survey at the right time to the right person at the right touch point of the customer journey is so important. And I think even us, like Satya, we were working on a project together just recently, revamping reports. Getting that right took a lot of like trial and error.
Exactly. So popping that survey question at the right time is decides the success of your survey, you can say. So one way by which you can you can get insights on how you can show the survey, it comes from your analytics tools actually.
Right.
You have a lot of information coming from there. Time spent on a specific page,
Right.
time spent on the entire session, number of pages on the session. These are things that you can directly use,
Right.
as a survey trigger. So that's how it works.
So I think, sometimes what happens is we're not able to realize from the analytics tools what is the experience of a user where they're getting stuck. So I think it's important to look at sessions in your analytics tools of customers who haven't completed a particular goal that you're optimizing for. It could be, selling the product, making them go to the pricing page, whatever that is, and see what are the kind of things that can tell you where they're getting stuck. I think getting that right is so important, and then getting that right for the customer, that matters.
Yeah.
So you can run a survey for almost everyone, and I've seen surveys, and when you're buying, automatically a survey comes in. What do you think about this experience? I haven't even bought this stuff.
People spend a lot of time figuring out which page the survey should run in, while they forget to kind of eliminate where it should explicitly not run in. For example, you're in the middle of a checkout process, you're about to convert, but then you see a pop-up that says, "What are you here for?" That's kind of
So what would be the ideal places to run a survey? Like how
I think Mark, since he runs an e-commerce website and we talked about checkout, he should tell us. So Mark, here is an e-commerce journey. Tell us where you would run a survey.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the easiest part to identify, or the clearest path to choose, is the one that you ask people where they are dropping. So you know where they're dropping off, and asking them at the point where they're dropping out why it is that they're leaving. I think that's quite important. So having a bit of a problem-driven approach, and trying to figure out why people are leaving. I guess that's the core lever for surveys, right? Like we know people are leaving, but why is it? And then
maps and recordings all you want from high drop-off areas, but that's not really going to tell you why it is happening. So visitors could do the same specific action on your website, but with two completely different motivations and intentions.
Yeah. Right.
Only a survey is going to go answer why they did that.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is, as you mentioned previously, it's really important that you don't amplify the drop-off by asking at the wrong time, right? So I've seen that quite a lot where, like you mentioned, you're in the middle of a checkout, you're about to buy, and then they start asking you questions, and about 5 questions later, if you actually are into answering it, then you've actually forgotten what you were there for. So it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling thing where you're causing a bigger drop-off by actually distracting users from what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, so I think as you said, Mark, right? Like understanding your funnels and how people kind of go through their customer journey on your website is really important. I think you should take a piece of paper and jot it down. Look at your analytics tool and then jot it down on a piece of paper. Like you can see on the screen, where are people spending most of their time? How are they kind of traveling through my website or through my product? And nailing that down, that customer journey for those particular segments that matter to your business is very important. And then if you ask the right question at the right time, that's where you get the most value. Because without surveys, it's just a data point.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you want to talk to the customers. You want to hear them.
Like Mark said, you can figure out the what, but the why is where the secret is hidden.
Right.
So why things are not.
And nailing that is very, very important.
Absolutely. And for us, for example, we have the luxury that we actually have an in-house sales team that talk to people on the phone all the time. So we already have the chance to actually directly ask them what their biggest issue is, or if they're struggling with something in particular. But a lot of businesses don't actually have that. So, and even for us, it's incredibly useful, but I'd imagine it's even more useful for a business that doesn't get the chance to talk to its customers all the time on a direct basis. So this is where this comes in, and where it really provides a lot of understanding of what your customers' problems actually are.
All right. So I think we nailed out on the point where we need to run the survey. We have to look into the drop-off point. We nailed out on the point that what are the modes we should not target them. And that also brings us to the point where we should be targeting them. What next?
And what segment? I think who's the customer that
the
you
audience,
want? Yes.
The person you
So
will
now
be targeting.
you can have people who are spending, let's say, just bouncing off, coming onto your website and leaving right from the homepage, versus someone who spent 10 minutes, put in, let's say, $200 worth of stuff in the checkout page, in the cart, and then targeting them. So you can start off with that, because those are low-hanging fruits. Because if you're not talking to customers, you're not talking to anyone, right? Mm-hmm. And the customers that matter, if you start talking to them first, and then kind of widen your horizon, that's not a bad strategy. What do you think, Satya? Does that?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to start with the low-hanging fruits.
Right.
Like I mentioned, so there are people who almost converted you.
Right.
That's where you need to start.
Right. So so those are the people who are almost there.
Yes.
But for some reason they're getting distracted.
So the insights you get from there, that's where you build it from, and try to focus on your other segments, perhaps improve those. But absolutely, starting at this.
So kind of to summarize, for whom are you running a survey for? Where on your website are you running the survey on? And then at what point are you showing the survey? These three things, customized to your customer journey for your most important segments. Combining these pieces of information would be very important to get your survey strategy correct, and so that you can get the most insights without hindering the experience of your customers.
So the what, where, and who are the building blocks of running a great survey.
Actually, sorry to I just an example just came into my head. One company that does it really well, I think all of us have used them, is Uber. And when does it show a survey? It shows a survey when you've finished a ride. Right then, it asks, how many stars do you want to give to this ride or to the driver? Yes. And then it asks for that. If you say 3 stars or less, it'll ask for more feedback. If it says 5, it'll say thank you, and then it goes away.
Exactly. So the context, the timing is so important that you've just finished your experience and you're in the same frame of mind. So your answers are going to be a little more reliable and more honest. Right. Whereas compared to perhaps a day later when you have no idea how your experience actually was.
Right. Just imagine Uber doing this wrong. So for example, you're in the middle of the ride and you're having, let's say, an argument with the driver, and then Uber asks you, how's your ride going? Right? That would be the most annoying thing ever. So that's the difference between a great experience with service and a horrible experience with service.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we had a couple of data points. I think Satya would want to quickly discuss it. The first data point was what are the triggering conditions which
I
VWO
think
customers.
we touched upon that before in brief. So like I mentioned, you look at the time spent per page where you're in the session and the number of pages they look into. So when I say how does a on-page survey work? You go to a website, you spend a little bit of time on it before it pops up, right? So what are you doing in that little bit of time? You're getting a brief idea about the website.
Right.
You're trying to understand what this place is all about.
Right.
That is exactly when you should, after which you should show the survey and get responses.
So if you were to give an example, I think if I'm getting this correctly, let's say someone spends about a minute on a page before they go to the next page or the next part of the funnel. Right. Instead, let's say someone who is either staying for, let's say, 2 minutes or a minute and a half. That is a lot more than what a normal user would stay on a page. Is that what do you think? Is that a good enough trigger for us on that page?
See, these are the things that you need to experiment to figure out.
Right.
But the most important thing is it shouldn't be intrusive. Right. So when they don't have a proper experience, when they see something intruding, their opinion of the website distorts a little bit, and you don't really want that coming into your survey because that's going to distort your survey as a whole.
Right. Mark, what do you think? Time spent in a session. How would you use that, or would you use that, or something else on that pie chart?
No, I would definitely use it. I think it requires quite a bit of an understanding of what's normal for your users, and also it might be completely different. For example, in our case, B2b and B2c users are spending completely different amounts of time.
Right.
Some of them tend to browse, some of them tend to actually know what they're going for. So it's also important not to, if you have this kind of understanding, to really make use of it. If you already know your different customer groups, to also know what their behavior looks like when you're targeting them, because maybe otherwise the time frame you're setting is much too long for the customer that you actually want to catch.
Makes sense.
So I think we discussed about time spent. Then there's another condition called the number of pages seen in a session.
Yeah, it all points out towards the same thing. Like, for example, not really an example, but yeah. So the different kind of questions that you're going to ask, it can lead to that. Like, if you're focusing on a specific page, content on a specific page, and you're not taking references from it, you're going to focus on the time spent on the specific page.
Right.
Whereas if you're looking at a conversion funnel and figuring out, where to ask the right question, you're going to be looking at the number of pages spent in the session.
Let's say publishers. Publishers are a great example, right? People go on multiple pages, multiple articles.
Exactly. So it's all about what context the survey is setting. Is it about a specific page? Fine, you target it based on the time spent on the page. If it is like more about the entire conversion funnel, you look at the number of pages. The average visitor spends
So
time.
like a news website or a website, maybe even a blog. Like if they're looking to increase their subscribers, and they spend, like, say someone is spending time on 5 pages, 6 pages, but they're not giving away their email. So they're interested in the topic that you're talking about, but maybe your content is not up to the mark so that they can actually subscribe to the blog or subscribe to the news channel.
Maybe you're not delivering the value in subscription.
Exactly.
Or maybe they motivate them to subscribe.
Or maybe they did not find the content that is, that's what they're looking for, right?
It's just like simply swifting through your entire media resources and just checking that, whether you have that topic or not.
Right. So maybe at that point of time, if, as Mark said, right, you can, if you're able to figure out, how many articles someone reads before actually subscribing, and then that threshold is being breached. Pretty good idea to run a survey and see, was this content relevant to you? Did you find what you were looking for? As simple as that. And it's such a powerful question, and people give feedback, and it can really, help you get the content right. So yeah. Number of pages, I think that's a great trigger also.
And exit intent, I think it's a very straightforward.
So exit intent is pretty simple. So there are broadly 2 types of survey use cases if you look at it. Like how many of the surveys you look at, it will probably fall into these 2 categories. One is to figure out what they've come here to do. The second is why they didn't do a specific thing. So the why they didn't do a specific thing aspect of surveys is there, right? So that it's a great idea to tie in the exit intent as like as a combination, like tie it into all of your surveys, so that let them just answer.
But Satya, let me throw a curveball at you. Okay, so what do a lot of websites do, e-commerce websites? So exit intent, right? I think 8 out of 10 e-commerce websites that I've been to, they have shown me a coupon code,
discount code,
a 10% discount. Now, how do I decide 10% discount code or a survey? How should a business decide? And I open this for both Mark and Satya. Let's see.
E-commerce
survey or 10% discount code. How would you guys? Mark, you tell me. How would you take that call?
I would definitely look at what our biggest issue is. So are we really trying to figure out why people are leaving? Then we should ask them. I think then that information is so much more valuable than, because otherwise if you just show them a voucher and you don't know why they're actually leaving, maybe it's not the prices, maybe it's actually something totally different, right? So maybe the UX, they have a really bad UX experience. Giving them a voucher won't help. So I think the voucher for me would definitely be the second step. First, I want to know why they're leaving, and then when I know why they're leaving, then I can actually take measures, maybe in form of a different exit intent, or maybe even try to not get them to that point in the first place. And then if there's still a segment left that leaves, and we know it's because they're price sensitive, then we can still show a voucher.
So I think it's a little bit of a no-brainer, because a coupon is just like an inorganic way. How temporary is it going to be? You're not going to be able to run it all the time, right?
Right.
So temporarily, you're going to fix the conversions by showing a coupon, but showing a survey and understanding why the drop-off is happening at that point, that's priceless. You can improve upon it and not require a coupon altogether.
Tell it to the websites that have been showing me coupons.
No, actually, one instance which I want to talk about is A/B testing with the coupon percentage. Like sometimes I stop on seeing a 20% discount, but I don't stop on seeing a 10% discount.
But then we're optimizing for someone who's price sensitive.
Yeah.
That may not be your entire audience. Like taking those calls again, like going back to the point, understanding the customer is very important.
So why?
Yes. If your audience is price sensitive, maybe a coupon works. But if that's not the case, maybe a survey.
But your survey might actually point out to the fact that your visitors are price sensitive.
Maybe, yeah.
Another thing which I want to add is like it also depends on how you nourish the customer. Say if I made my first purchase with a 20% discount, and since then I know that I can get that product at a discount because that's how I was nourished from the very beginning.
Right.
I only receive email campaigns or there's a sale and offer. I have the appetite of only buying when there's a discount. So it majorly depends on how you have nourished the customer.
So I think
you are in the right bucket over there.
I know A/B test it. Put a survey and a coupon, A/B test it, and see what happens. I think that could give you a lot of insights.
Actually, for both of those, I guess timing is incredibly important. Actually, I wish I remembered the name of the shop so I could shame them now. I'm afraid I don't. It was a German shop. And they actually committed this crime twice. The first time they showed me a coupon after I had already checked out. I think that actually made me angrier than anything else. The other time they showed me an excellent intent survey after I had already checked out, and that's fine. But the problem is that they were asking me why I'm leaving. And I think in that case, the answer is pretty straightforward. So the quality of responses they must have gotten to that must have been pretty bad.
They try to personalize the messaging, but they just got it horribly wrong.
With the time.
Yeah. All right.
I think that it's time to get Mark on the board, right? Like Mark, quickly discuss what were you running a survey for?
Absolutely. So this is an interesting case. We've used surveys previously to ask people about their experience with our website. So as we mentioned earlier, when we identified drop-off points, we tried to figure out why people were leaving. We tried to figure out what they were missing or if they were frustrated with something. And that's that's asking the customer to look back and think about what went wrong. This is a bit of a different scenario. So this is actually a case where we've talked to our customers a lot, as I said, in person. Our sales team talks to them, and we get this granular feedback about different shipping options. This is something people kept bringing up. So some of them say, I really need this the next day. Can you make it happen somehow? Others are saying, oh, I know I won't be home that day, but I still need it at the end of the day. So is there any way we can leave a message with a haulier that they can just leave it on the doorstep or bring it to some shop around the corner? And others are saying, well, I basically need it at this point in time. For example, for our customers, because we're focusing on B2b and on craftsmen, they're quite often at construction sites. And delivery to construction sites is pretty tricky if you can't actually share any additional information, right? There's maybe not even a street number yet. Maybe it's really just a lot where people are working. So
or maybe it's down on different hours of the day.
Exactly. So yeah, exactly. They're not always there. The construction site maybe shuts down at 6. So if the guy comes after, he won't be able to drop it off. So these are all problems that we know our customers are facing. But solving each and every one of them is actually pretty costly and is a major investment. And we, of course, don't want to invest in a feature that maybe only a tiny subset of our customers use. Right, so we knew the need is there. We just don't know which of these is more important. And we also don't know what group they're important to, because we serve B2b and B2c customers. They have very different needs. And when we look at the survey later, we'll actually see that the responses are quite different, but it still really helps us to understand both customer groups.
So that's very interesting. So Mark, you talked about, you did not understand for what customer base you should run this for. So how did you tackle that? Like, when you're designing service, how did you make sure you would be able to kind of understand the different behaviors or the different needs of the customers that you had, you wanted to go the survey to?
If we don't have any data points we can connect them to, and if there's no way to target specifically, so if it's more of a soft criterion that we can't actually get any data on, then I think I would just straight up ask the customer. So why do you, or what do you usually purchase from us? Why do you purchase from us? And then depending on that, change the follow-up questions. In this case, we thought about a lot of things we can do actually apart from surveys as well, right? So we're thinking, oh, maybe we can do an ABC test. Of course, in this case, this would have meant developing every single feature and then running them against each other, which kind of defeats the point and would be very expensive. We've also considered running a painted door test. In case someone who's watching is not familiar with this is basically where you simulate a feature, and then when a customer clicks on it and says, yes, I want this, then you tell them, oh, sorry, we're still working on it, but we can sign up. Exactly, and that's very dangerous. So that's a very dangerous thing to do. I've seen websites do it. For example, The Guardian did it once, where they actually were pretending to have a save this article for later function. And when you clicked it, they told you, sorry, we don't have this yet, but thanks for letting us know you're interested. So very risky stuff, right? What we did now is, for us, the biggest difference is B2b and B2c. And when a customer comes to our website, they actually choose if they are B2B or B2C customer, because it's also relevant in terms of pricing, because there's a difference in taxes. So from that, what we do is we set a cookie. And now based on that cookie, we basically show the customer either the B2B or the B2C survey. So if there's a technical solution, it's very straightforward. As I said, otherwise, I think I would just ask the question beforehand in order to determine what kind of customer.
Mark, sorry to interrupt. Could you just explain the way you targeted your customers with the cookie a little more in detail if possible?
You mean in terms of how we target for B2B and B2C?
Yeah. A little bit. If it, not too technical, but yeah, if possible, a little more detail on that.
Yeah, sure. So basically, depending on what the customer chooses. So when they come to our website and they don't have a cookie, then they actually see a little pop-up that asks them, are you a private or a business customer? Okay. And they can also switch that theoretically in between. Of course, it hardly ever happens, but sometimes people pick the wrong thing. But depending on what they do there, we set a cookie. And that cookie has a value that's either B2B or B2C. And since VWO supports the creation of customer segments, we just created a B2B segment that is defined by the cookie value being B2B and a B2C segment that is defined by the cookie value being B2C.
That's pretty simple. That's pretty simple and elegant, actually.
Yeah. And cool. Gathering feedback right in the product development, right? Like they are shaping up their roadmap basis on the things what the customer absolutely wants.
Right.
Yeah. So let's quickly get into the data of things.
I think we've got Mark's, we've got the surveys that Mark ran.
Yeah.
So we can actually show it in the dashboard itself. So Mark, tell us what's going on here.
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, we basically want to know what shipping options our customers prefer, but we're also not entirely sure if the options that we're asking them for really cover everything, because maybe some customers just haven't mentioned to us what they're missing. So what you see here, the question 1 is asking them, we're currently working on introducing new shipping options. Which of the following options are the most interesting to you? And then the answers are either a timed delivery or next day delivery, or choosing a specific drop-off spot. And then we have an option 4, which is others, and they can answer then, they can then just put a free text thing in there telling us if they have any option, if they prefer any option that we haven't listed. And as you can see, it doesn't seem to happen too much. So only 3% of customers choose other. We know that at least for our B2C customers, they prefer express shipping. So that's really, really good for us to know. And yeah, then when they answered that, so this is a mandatory question because otherwise we wouldn't actually be able to work with the results. And once they've answered that, we always ask them, why do you actually prefer this option? Because not only do we want to offer them a set of options, but there's also sometimes the case that a customer has a need where they aren't sure how we can fill it, but maybe we know how we can fill it. So maybe they pick express delivery, but then they give us a reason that doesn't actually fit that case very well. It just happens. People don't read the survey in detail, or they maybe have something else in mind. And this also helps us again later vet out if the results that we got in are actually valid from this respondent. So as you can see, again, so the 3 options are actually both liked quite, all 3 of them are liked quite a bit, but we definitely have a trend towards the express delivery.
This is very interesting. I do not know what you did at the end, but although second option was very popular, you still have 2 options that are much cheaper than the second one, right? So like from a business standpoint, if you're looking at that, you're like, okay, I may piss off a few customers or may not be able to meet the standards of about 37% of my audience, But if I, let's say, run a 2-day shipping thing, it still satisfies about 60% of my audience. So how did you take that call? Like what kind of discussions did you have with the stakeholders at Contorian?
So we were actually quite lucky in that regard. If you could go back to the previous page, please, and open the second survey. So this, as we mentioned, this was the B2C survey, but we actually focus on B2B customers.
Okay.
And the B2B survey is actually much clearer, and this also highlights how big the difference actually is between those two segments. Here we have a very clear winner, and this is really good. Like, we were really happy that we set it up like this, because I think if we had just thrown both of these segments into one pot, the result really wouldn't have been this clear. But we know that our B2B customers, close to 70% of them actually prefer express delivery. And thanks to the B2C survey, we also know that this is, although it's by a small margin, also the most popular option for our B2C customers. So in this case, we looked at both and we decided, okay, we will go ahead with express delivery. And once that is implemented, we might actually run a follow-up survey, actually asking them what's now the next option, because we don't necessarily want to stop here, but it gives us a very good starting point.
Just a quick question, Mark. So at what point, I see that you've got around more than 650 completed responses here. At what point did you feel that there was a lot of repetition that was happening? At what point could you see this trend already form? And the minimum number of responses, you could see this trend already identified already.
I would say we could actually see a first clear trend with the B2B customers after about 5 days. With the B2C customers, it kept going back and forth until actually slowly the express express delivery kind of crystallized as a winner there as well. So Sorry?
How much traffic would that be? I understand 5 days. Like, do you have any idea how much it would be at, like, perhaps the number of responses?
I think in a day we received about 300 replies, I believe. So in total, split between B2B and B2C.
It's about 4,482 people. Like you can see, so you can actually see the information here displayed. Almost 4,500 people, and then about 1,200 people attempted. And about 680 people completed. Yeah.
And it also gives some really interesting insights into, first of all, how effective the placement of the survey is, and also how likely your target group is to respond. Because here we only have a response rate of about 15%, but actually our B2C customers have a response rate of about 25%, which is pretty amazing for a survey. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's pretty.
Exactly.
The response rate that you've got is pretty good compared to a lot of surveys that I've seen.
Exactly, and I'm very surprised because this is the first survey that we are running after checkout, and we've actually never done anything with our checkout success page before, because our assumption always was it's not very clean right now. There's a lot of stuff going on at the same time, like we're asking people to rate us on Google and trusted shops. And my hunch was just that people would just close it because they're done shopping. But actually, we have such an amazing response rate that we're definitely going to be using this page a lot more where it makes sense to run surveys.
I think Mark, I think that's a very, very important point. I think 2 points that really stand out for me. One is getting the segments right and targeting them so that you're able to understand a behavior of a particular segment, and that will give you the most insights. The other one is, you talked about you did not expect the kind of replies that you got, and I think that's where it's very interesting. The point where you asked for a survey was right after a delight moment for the customer. Yeah. They had a great, they went through the entire process. They bought what they were looking for, and then at that point of time, if you asked something that was not trying to upsell or cross-sell them and asking about their experience, I think a lot of people, or I'm assuming, you can run a survey for that, but I'm assuming that they were delighted with the service, and they were nice enough to actually help you improve the experience later on. So I think the timing of the survey and where you show it was also plays an unbelievable role.
Also, like another benefit which this has would be that they're looking forward to use it again. You use the services again. Because if you can nail down on a few more things which can improve my experience, why not? Yeah. I'll come back again to make it another.
So Mark, what is the future scope of this initiative that you've gotten? Like you dig a little bit, you figure out that you need a different survey for your B2B and B2C customer. Are you planning to dig further to figure out different segments that could perhaps give you different answers, and try to is that being planned for this initiative?
Absolutely. So we are definitely also interested to figure out, for example, if our returning customers have different needs than our first-time purchasers. We definitely have a lot of customers that frequent us a lot. Of course, they're very valuable to us. So just in terms of the weight of their voice for this particular project, it's really quite important. So I think that would be the next thing for us to figure out. So how many of our high-value returning loyal customers have a preference in one way or another?
Right. So would you be, would you also be connecting, the response they gave as a first-time visitor, and what they responded as a returning visitor? Like, would that make sense if you were to do that?
Definitely, because we know that we actually have a lot of first-time customers. But so this means that their voice can really overwhelm our loyal customers, right? So if we just have a lot of first-time purchasers who pick an option, but maybe they'll never come back. Maybe hypothetically, express checkout is express delivery is really important for them, but maybe they won't come back. So, but on the other hand, our really loyal business customers, we really need to be careful that we hear their voice and that we also really cater to them.
Right. So separating the good voice from all the noise, I guess. Right.
Oh, nice. That rhymes also.
And one thing I meant to mention, what we really noticed is phrasing is quite important. So we really try to make our customers feel like, and that's what we're basically doing, right? We really want to improve our service and we want to improve it for them. We want to add convenience, and we're asking them this question so we can make their experience better. We're not asking them this question because we're trying to squeeze the last cent out of them or something. So I think the feeling that's transported with a survey can be very different depending on how the questions are phrased as well.
Do you have any learnings to share when it comes to phrasing?
Yeah, I think it's always good to let the customer know why you're asking them certain things, if it's possible. So of course, it's understandable that not everyone's comfortable, and it might also not be a very good idea to go, oh, a lot of people are dropping off here, why are you leaving? That's probably not a very good thing to ask. But in this case, I think we can afford to be really transparent about it and say, we're actually working to introduce more shipping options for you. We think that this is interesting to you. Just, you can actually help us shape this feature by letting us know what's important to you.
Okay, makes sense.
So I think like the whole premise of exchanging value is a great way of scripting or maybe writing down your survey copy. All right. What next do we have? Did you face any challenges in running surveys on the platform?
Only in the beginning. I think that our only challenge was our own understanding of what all was possible. Actually, it honestly took me a day or two to come up with the idea to target according to the B2B or B2C cookie, because first of all, I had to figure out that's how we do it actually on our website. Then I had to look at VWO, at the survey feature, to look at if we can actually target that, which we can. So. But I think in general, it was pretty smooth, and especially compared to the other options that we would have had. So again, it's super easy to set up. The nice thing is non-technical staff can do it, so that's always a plus, right? Basically, anyone in marketing can come up with a survey, and they can design it, and then basically just show it to me, and we can agree if it's good or not, and then we'll just launch it within a minute. That's just very convenient. People in-house actually love it because they can look at the preview and see what it's going to look like. And most importantly, as opposed to tests, it really allows us to get free-form feedback. So we don't have to box the customer in, pick 1 or 3 questions, but we can also say, okay, if this doesn't apply, just let us know whatever you want to let us know. So that's very, very helpful. And we are really big, and it's also been a learning for me over the last couple of years since I started in product management, how important it really is to talk to your customer on a qualitative level and not just get data in and then you keep making assumptions based on the data, but actually trying to make sense of that data with the help of your customers.
Right. Speaking of, how you analyzed it, how you performed a qualitative analysis, did you actively, consider, things like cognitive bias and confirmation bias, because there's a lot of mistakes that can happen there, right? When you're analyzing qualitative feedback.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I do have to admit that I'm very happy that we have people in house who have a lot of experience with this, because designing a survey really is a bit of a science in itself. Just when it comes to wording, trying to not ask suggestive questions, and so on and so forth. So really, we try to, and I'm sure we're not always perfect with it as well, but we really try to be aware of when we are asking leading questions, which we really should never be doing. But especially when you have, as a product manager, you have a stakeholder coming to you, they really want this feature. They're so convinced it's going to work. If you let them design the survey and run the survey, the results will be pretty much what they expect, because they will be asking the questions in a way that probably comes back very positively. So it's important not to be also to be aware of your own bias when you set these up. I really want features to work sometimes, but if I want neutral feedback, I need to ask neutral questions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So moving further, I think this is the VWO on VWO moment for us.
This was a case study that we had.
Exactly. Like let's unleash it.
Yes.
So what you guys?
So I think
doing?
I think some of you have seen the new VWO reports.
Yeah.
And VWO reports, I think we have iterated on the reports for the past 3 years, but we saw that we had to like really take that jump and improve them by a particular delta. Since now we are in 2019, give them an uplift, and then we were thinking, how should we kind of understand what our customers feel, because it's very interesting, right? It's part of the product, so everyone is using reports. Almost all of our traffic, all of our customers, go to VW reports and use that to analyze their A/B testing reports. So now, how do you figure out, what's actually not working? Because any kind of data point that you would see, it would be like, they're spending a lot of time, they're clicking at the right links, they are looking at graphs, they are looking at numbers. So the numbers tell a great story, and we could pat ourselves on the back and be like, okay, this is working great, let's not touch it. But one interesting thing we did was we ran VW surveys on the reports. And this was, so, Mark did a great targeting for the right customer. We did not even do that. We just wanted to get and understand people who are using our reports, what's going on with them. Are they,
really happy?
Yeah, is it helpful? If someone is opening reports, are they getting what they're looking to get out of reports?
While you were patting your back and everything.
Yes, while we were enjoying the numbers. And actually, now this time we should actually deep dive into the interface itself.
All right.
So so this is okay. You're revealing the juice a bit earlier.
Too soon. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So so we asked, how satisfied are you with VW reports? And this very like it's like a CSAT survey. So the way you would figure this out is like people who are satisfied and very satisfied. So this is about 31% of the audience, or about 160 people divided by the total number of people that took the survey. So in this case, about 31% of the customers are actually satisfied with our reports, and about 42% were neutral, and about 25% were not that happy with the reports. Now this is where it gets interesting. So you see all of these responses. So I would not export it to CSV, but people were like, here, make it minimal but
and
clear.
This is our way of being transparent with our feedback.
Yes. So obviously, sometimes this person did not have a great experience, but what they did was, you see this icon, they left their email.
Yeah.
And this is something, this has been a game changer for us. Why? Because we asked the question, how satisfied are you with VW reports? If you want to leave your feedback, and if you want to talk to us, or if you let us ask for more feedback, leave your email. And you'll be surprised how many people left their email. I think we had like about 150 to 200 people leave their email.
Wow.
And we ended up talking to about 100 customers, either through email or through phone calls, and collected their feedback. And that has been a game changer in improving our reports. It's very simple, but what we did was, we talked to them, we got on calls, showed them the designs that we are looking.
Oh, you got it vetted from them.
Yeah, we got it vetted for them, not once or twice. We're talking about 4 or 5 iterations with these customers.
I look at that guy's face, and
And as Mark said, it is time consuming, but it's definitely worth the effort. And the result is that we were able to increase the satisfaction score. We targeted this survey for our most the customers who have got the highest engagement on the platform, because we opened the new reports to them first so that we can get their feedback. And the satisfaction score is almost 70% at this point of time, which is more than 2x jump than what we had before. And just a very simple use of VW surveys to not just collect feedback, but to connect with our audience, talk to them, and make them part of the process of improving our product. And it has led to some great results.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And by the way, if you want access to VW reports,
simply write to us.
You can do that right after this webinar. We'll give you the exclusive access. Yeah.
Otherwise, we have plans of launching it by the
But
end.
if you want it before that,
it's coming for everyone.
It's coming. All right.
I'm just curious. So, when you collected the feedback afterwards in person, how did you weigh that against? That's something we struggle with quite a bit, actually. Like, so we talk to people in person afterwards. How do you decide? Do you just go by quantity? What you hear the most, you will take action on, or is there some other method that you use?
I think it's important to first of all, capture all the feedback with a very neutral mindset. So that's what we did. So we captured all the points that people were saying, and we divided them according to the type of customer we had. So like based on plans, and then the Alexa ranking of their website, and also the kind of traffic that they bought from us. So we were able to kind of figure out like what kind of customer and what kind of needs would they have, which were not being fulfilled, and this is the kind of response they're giving to us. So in our case, the thing is we have a lot of early stage companies, small and medium companies also as part of our customer base. And then we also have enterprises, someone like a Disney or like a Marina Bay Sands using us. So it's not that we can ignore one part.
Yeah.
So by having these segments and understanding what their needs are, we actually try to tackle the needs of different customer segments in the reports. So the whole point is, and you would see with the new reports, it starts off as a very simple report, but you can customize and you can add more power to it as you feel like, because that's what our advanced customers wanted. So we did not actually pick and choose. We divided it according to different customer segments. We prioritized by the frequency that the feedback came on, and then we're trying to implement as much as we can so that all of our customers are kind of happy. But getting that right is a bit tricky. So that's why we involve the customer in the design process. Because we may think we are solving the problem for both of them, but both of them might end up being unhappy, right? So getting them involved in the design process was, I think, the key to get it right for both the customers.
And I think the customer very open about that, like, because ultimately this value would be delivered to these guys only. Like they would be happy to interpret much comprehensive report, get much better insights from the things that they're already investing a lot in. Like building the variation, running a test for waiting for 2 months. Like it's a lot of investment you have to do. And if it all falls down into not getting a suboptimal results, then that does not solve the purpose. So they knew that, while by helping us in terms of improving the entire cycle, it's actually, they're helping themselves that way. And it all made sense.
And you'll be surprised, how much, when customers love your product or they interact with the product, they are, they empathize with your process. They want to help you, and you just have to ask. And I think a lot of companies do not ask. So if you're not talking to your customers, go out there, run a survey, or maybe if you've got their phone numbers, call them. And start a conversation, because you'll be surprised how much insight you can get.
I think that's how you should prioritize it. Call them. If they're busy, send them a survey. If they're not, just like target them with service.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's something I noticed to myself actually recently. Jira actually changed their interface quite significantly, and I wasn't a big fan of it, and so I was starting to panic because everything looked different. And then I found a button to actually switch back, and when I switched back, they asked me, "Hey, would you be actually willing to tell us why you're not using the new design?" And that also kind of provided a little bit of relief for me as a customer, because I could make my voice heard and tell them, no, this was great the way it was. I was very happy with it. hopefully, and then it kind of takes the frustration out immediately a little bit too, right? Like you actually have a place to tell them why you don't like something the way they're doing it. So this is an effect I actually didn't think about before. I experienced it myself, but it can definitely have a positive effect to ask people. It doesn't just bother them.
And as a business, it's an amazing way to show that you care, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, like we all are like delivering a value, and we care about your feedback. We care about what you have to say about it. So yeah. So moving forward, let's like quickly discuss the ingredients of building a great service.
Yes. I think we have hit almost all the points in both the examples initially, but to kind of go through it again, you definitely need a survey strategy. You definitely need to know what the survey experience will look like and get a strategy in place. At what point of the customer journey would you show it? To whom would you show it? And when would it be triggered? And then the second point, I think messaging, as Mark said, that is
so there's of course there's a lot of scope for experimentation here. You figure out, you never know what is going to work, especially when it comes to phrasing. So it is a great idea to experiment with different variations and figure out what really works for your visitors.
And as Mark said, understand what your biases are and make sure you address them. Get your questions vetted by someone who's probably not vested into your brand or anything, and make sure that they are able to understand the kind of question you are trying to ask.
Exactly.
And even maybe get it vetted from a professional. You can get on, there are different platforms where you can get the questions vetted, but removing the bias is an important ingredient to get the messaging right.
All right.
And then, as I said, triggering it, obviously, we have discussed that, and the right visitors. So
right figure is like segmenting them and being very sure what you're like. And I think that comes from the triggering condition as well. Like if you are only targeting people who are spending a good amount of time on the page, that in itself is a segment. And you won't want to create more friction point in your survey experience so that it.
Yeah, of course you can look at what is the majority of your drop-offs, which segment are dropping off a lot, and perhaps you can address it that specifically.
So definitely open up your analytics tool and look into that. Within VWO, if you've got your funnel set up, that's a great place to actually see where people are dropping off, and at that point of time you can run surveys. So the funnels within VWO are also a great way to actually see and visualize where they're dropping off, and then run a survey on that segment within VWO itself and ask them the right questions.
All right. So I think with that we have wrapped up the session. The session is open for Q&A. One question which comes to my mind is that there are a variety of surveys which people run. Like there are NPS surveys, there are like surveys knowing about why they're leaving and all that. Like at what point you decide that you maybe NPS fits better, or maybe asking the context fits better. We did talk about that, but the role of NPS surveys. What are the areas you think that they fit us best?
So to start things off, like when you don't really know what specifically you have a problem with, NPS is a great way to start. So perhaps you can follow up with the detractors as to what they feel needs to be improved, for you to at least identify areas of your website that are not up to expectations. So that's a situation wherein your NPS is gonna be a lot helpful. If you know what you're gonna ask, you're not really gonna run an NPS. You're gonna ask that straight away.
Right. So NPS is more around, and I think the language of the NPS is important. So it asks, how strongly would you recommend, or something on those lines. How strongly would you recommend, let's say, VWO to your friends or colleagues? So it's targeted towards word of mouth. So the feel about the brand, how I feel about the brand, how confident am I to actually share that feeling with someone else. So it's trying to ask you about that. So if I'm trying to understand what my brand, or how my brand resonates with my audience, NPS is a great survey to run. And if you want to improve, the word of mouth around your product, or if you want more and more people to get to know about your product or talk about your product, NPS is a great way to understand what's stopping them from doing that. And I think from a brand perspective, it's really cool. Yeah.
All right, Mark, what is your take on NPS surveys and other things?
I think when you choose what kind of question to ask or what kind of survey to use, of course there's a lot of factors, but one of them definitely is like you mentioned, am I looking for a specific problem, or am I just looking to get an overall feel about the experience? But I guess it also is, how well do I already understand my customer? So if I'm starting out as a new business, and quite often I'm not entirely sure what my current customer base actually looks like, how big certain segments are, what people in certain segments think about certain features. I think it's okay to start out wide. And I think anyway, an NPS survey, having it run on the side is always a good idea, because it definitely is a good indicator for when something is going terribly wrong. Something that you might not figure out with a very targeted survey, you might really find out with an NPS survey, because if your score starts going down and you see a trend, and that's what these are really good for, is to identify trends. That's when they're really helpful. I would definitely, I've talked to former colleagues who use them to actually try and figure out more specific issues, or they hope they get specific feedback through them. But when you talk to them a couple months later, they will tell you, no, this didn't actually work out. We just got a rather very wide feedback. And unless there is a huge glaring issue that everyone mentions during the NPS scoring question, you will probably not get the feedback you're looking for if you're looking for very in-depth feedback.
All right. So I don't see any more questions coming in. I think it's time to close the session.
Yeah, I think, Mark, great talking to you, and great discussing your case study. You've been very kind to share it with the audience. And yeah, it was awesome to talk to you.
Thanks you guys. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the audience for attending the session. We'll be coming in very soon, in a couple of weeks. We are planning to do another session on advanced A/B testing, where we'll be discussing things you can improve your context of targeting by maybe targeting users on their behavior, targeting users on different setting conditions, and how you can kind of optimize the entire experience, and then have a quality segmentation of what
and we have a very interesting customer coming in. And we'll not reveal it. Let's not reveal it. Let's keep it for the page.
Exactly.
But yeah, someone who's really into testing, uses our platform like very, very extensively. And I think if you can think about an experiment you want to run, this customer probably has run it.
Exactly.
So I think definitely worth getting on a call, getting on the podcast to listen to the customer, and we may also have a couple of nuggets to share.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark, for joining in.
Thanks a lot.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.